What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and today I'm privileged to be joined by the winner of the 2020 Tampa Pro, Hunter Labrada, as he's under 3 weeks out of the 2020 Mr Olympia. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we're being joined by Titan tonight too. Apparently, this is
I can see the dude in the background.
But yeah, anyways, he wanted to be in the bottom corner. But no, man. Yeah, I'm doing great. Great's a relative term at 2 weeks out, right? But yeah, no, I'm doing good, man. I'm looking forward to it. The hype's definitely starting to pick up around the show. Ever since all the pro qualifiers to get there, ended. It's kind of been like all eyes on the Olympia. And, it's been, I think this is like the third or fourth interview I've done this week or in the last like 5 days. It's just starting to get really real on all the fronts. It's really real in the gym. It's really real on the diet. It's really real with, the media and stuff. So it's coming to a head and I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And you strike me as a guy that sort of has the old school in you. You're one of the younger guys probably, or maybe the youngest doing the Open Mr Olympia. I'm not too sure, but you have that real old school mentality. Do you think that's like bred through your dad? Because you're training heavy, you seem like just with your diet, you're posting up your diet as well, which is, I think is really cool, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't really see other guys do that. And you've got that old school sort of diet. Yeah. Here's my high day. Here's my medium day. Here's my low day. And this is what I'm doing sort of thing. So, I mean, do you think that's instilled from your dad?
Honestly, my training style is pretty different from what my dad was when he was competing. I think my training style is more just so, what's come out the other end of the last, 10 to 12 years of training. Been very fortunate to have worked with some of like the best minds and, like hypertrophy based training, if you will. I got to pick the mind like John Meadows, Joe Bennett, Ben Pekulski, just like anyone that I've, been curious about, I've pretty much had an opportunity to talk to. So I feel like it's just kind of been a culmination of experience and, just what I feel works that's popped out the other end. As far as the intensity goes, that's just one of the big main components of training like I do because, I train super low volume. So for you to be able to train super low volume, you have to be able to take the sets to a certain place. So, I think that's where that comes from, is this understanding it's part of what needs to be done. And then knowing, I'm going to do anything to get what I need to get done. So it's a byproduct of that, I believe.
Yep. Now you made huge improvements from obviously like turning pro to doing the Tampa Pro. Like it was absolutely incredible and not that huge of amount of time considering you had that injury and all that sort of stuff as well. Now, have you been able to make progress, I suppose, from that Tampa Pro win to where you're at now? Because I'm looking at
I was about to say, wait to see the difference between Tampa and the Olympia.
Yeah, can't wait.
It's we're on track. We're on track to be better for sure.
Awesome.
And not marginally better. It should look like more than 4 months in between for sure.
Wow, that's exciting, man. And I'm excited. Obviously, I'm a fan of yours. I'm a fan of a few of these guys doing the Olympia as well. So I'm really excited to see what you actually bring to the stage. Now, are you still like training heavy and stuff up to this point, or is it there a certain point where you sort of back off a little bit just I suppose, to prevent injury?
Honestly, man, the training, and this is something that, me and my training partner, Brian, really prided ourselves on. The training didn't change until 6 days before the show. Wow. For Tampa, like my last leg day, like we squatted, and that was 8 days before the show. We banded rack pulled on the last back day, So it's one of those things that, I'm a big believer in, we'll put the tissue on you, keep the tissue on you. And you got to keep in mind the way that I'm training. There is zero ballistic, there's zero explosiveness. It's like perfectly under control. And, I'm doing, minimum eight reps in a set. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's a relatively safe way to lift, even close. Are the poundages heavy? Yes, but, heavy is relative. Like I said, I'm doing it for, 8 to 12 reps. So, one person sees their 1 rep max and I'm like, oh my God, that's so dumb. He's lifting so heavy. It's like, well, it's all relative. This is something that I can do 8 to 10 times. I think that's lost on people a little bit because they see the huge poundages, but they don't see the control and the reps that we're hitting with it. But yeah, that's a long-winded way to answer your question of nope, not a damn thing will change headed into the show with the training in terms of, what we're aiming to do on my top sets. That being said, the thing that is changing is we're definitely, especially in the last like 10 to 12 days, have reduced the volume pretty much as much as you can reduce your volume. I'm basically doing, like a top set per exercise and then a back off on like maybe half of them. There's a lot of exercises I'm just doing one all out set on right now. So that's different from the off season from the standpoint that, on any given exercise, we might do, like one real hard all out top set, then, do a back off set with, 20% reduction in weight and still go to complete failure. And then, maybe even a third set with like a rest pause or a drop set, when the calories are high and stuff. But, systematically throughout the prep, as the calories have gotten lower, those kinds of sets have gone away. And it's pretty much just one or maybe two heavy straight sets per exercise at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, coming into obviously your pro debut, there's a lot of hype. People saw photos coming up, and I was excited to see you compete. And we got to, you delivered. You know what I mean? You won your pro debut against, good competitors, including Anne Valier, which is an amazing pro debut. Now, how different has the prep felt, I suppose, in terms of like everyone's, I suppose, expectations and what you're hearing and stuff for the Olympia compared to your pro debut?
Man, honestly, it's kind of one of those things like, this is like the least pressure I've ever had, as funny as that sounds, for a show. Because like, truth be told, this is the first time I've ever done a show and it not be expected of me to win it.
Yeah. How different does that feel? I mean, like for you?
I mean, it's cool for me because I just get to show up and have no expectations. I'm planning on shocking people, but it's like, from the standpoint of, it's like, I'm not going in there like people, oh, well, he better place third or he's a failure kind of deal. It's like, everyone's like, I'm hearing anything from like, oh, he could place sixth all the way to he's going to be like 12th or 14th. And, it's like, in my mind, I know where I think I'm going to land. And I've been telling every person that interviews me this before you ask. I'm keeping it to myself until afterwards. But, it's going to be good, man. It's going to be good.
Yep. Now you're saying you're obviously keeping that to yourself where you think you might land. What would be a disappointment for you? Like if you place like X placing, would you walk away and be like, damn? Or is it more about the look you bring to the stage?
Man, it's definitely about the look, but at the end of the day, I hate to put numbers on it, but yeah, to be blunt, if I don't place top 10, I'll feel like I failed.
Yep.
Like to be perfectly blunt about it, if I don't place in the top 10, I'll be extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
And the standard that I have in my head's even higher than that, but it's one of those things that I think I messed up if I don't do that. So that's my standard for myself, at least. I know there's people that don't agree, but that's where my head is heading into it.
Yep, absolutely. And how, I suppose the Olympia obviously has been moved from Vegas to Orlando, Florida, which were you in Dallas or are you in Florida? I'm not sure where you're actually living at the moment.
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay, yep,
So about 3.5 hours south of Dallas. I do spend a lot of time in Dallas though for gas. They're one of my main sponsors. So I'm up there a lot. So easy to mistake.
Yep. Are you excited that the Olympia's actually moved and you're going to have fans there as opposed to, doing your first Olympia where you might have had literally no crowd?
Oh, well, for starters, I hate Las Vegas.
Oh,
So it's one of those things like, don't get me wrong, awesome destination, awesome place to have the show, great for bodybuilding. It's an international destination, makes it easy to get people to come out and support you because it's not like come to like the middle of BFE to watch a bodybuilding show. It's, hey, come to Las Vegas and come check something out one night while you're there kind of deal. But no, dude, to be honest with you, I'm pretty stoked it's in Orlando just because like don't have to deal with the casinos. I'm in an actual Airbnb that's like a full-blown house with a kitchen. It's just it's a lot more comfortable and a lot more just kind of what I'm used to instead of the Vegas Strip. So personally, very excited about Orlando. It really seems like the Olympia team is just like beyond on their P's and Q's about getting the location transferred. So in my mind, it's going to be as big as an extravagance as ever. I'm imagining they're going to try and push the envelope even just to kind of be like, ha, look what we did, So I think it's going to be a great thing. And, it's out of people's recent memory, but, the Olympia hasn't always been in Las Vegas. I think it's kind of cool that it's going to be somewhere else. It's kind of funny. Last time the Olympia was in Orlando, actually, it was 1991, and my dad competed in it. So
wow,
that's cool little factoid. But no, I think it'll be a good thing. Like I said, props to the IFBB and the Olympia organization for making it happen for us still with spectators. So.
And your dad in that 1991 Mr. Olympia, did he play second at that one?
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe
Well,
so.
I don't know if you'll be able to repeat second because that's a tough one.
I
With
mean, yeah, it's lofty, but I got some good juju in Florida for sure. I've never lost in Florida. I won nationals in Tampa, so we'll see what happens with an Olympia that's in Florida.
Absolutely. Now, who are you most excited to compete against in Miss Olympia? Because you've got some amazing competitors. You've got Phil Heath, Brandon Curry, William Bonac, Hardy Chupin, if he makes it over, Rolly Winkler. There's a lot of really, I suppose, names that are established at that top there. And your name, I suppose, is established as of this year, but it's not obviously established amongst those top Olympians. Who are you most excited to, I suppose, stand on stage with?
Man, honestly, I've been asked this a lot now, and I've said the same thing every single time. And it's more so for the history of it than anything, but I'm really excited to be able to say that I stood next to Dexter.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Just because everyone else that you listed, chances are I'll compete against them again. Maybe not Phil if he wins and walks away, which, that's going to be a whole different story in itself. It's going to be cool to be able to watch that battle, too, from best seats in the house. But, at the end of the day, Dexter, he's one of the best to ever do it. And obviously it's his last hurrah. So, this was, if I was going to get to stand next to him, this was the contest that I was going to do it at. So, it's cool to be able to know that we should be able to stand next to each other on the stage for his last time. So I'm really stoked about that. That'll be a huge honor to stand next to someone like that.
Yeah. And how does it feel people comparing? Like, I mean, I did my real early Olympia predictions weeks ago, and I predicted you top 6. I predicted you 6th place, and I put Dexter 7th. And I thought, oh, that's a bit crazy because Dexter's obviously, a former Mr. Olympia and everything. But obviously, like people comparing you and Dexter in terms of where you guys might place you, Dexter, and a bunch of others. And obviously, that's not you comparing, but it's other people making that speculation that you guys might be sort of in the same sort of call outs, maybe first or second. How does that feel being compared to a legend of the sport?
Man, it's kind of surreal, to be honest with you. I'll always say this, it's one thing to have, like random people, be like, oh, you're gonna place top 6 at the O kind of deal. Yeah, like, whatever, cool. But to hear it come from the mouths of some of the people that it's come from, like contemporaries of my dad's, or, like really, successful pros after that, it's been cool. But every single time that I hear comments like that, all it is to me kind of basically at this point is a reminder of, it's just potential, and potential's a huge ass hole until you fill it. So it's very cool and it's very flattering, but at the end of the day, I don't put too much stock in it, I guess is the best way to say it.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter unless it happens, sort of thing as well.
Yeah, right. Like I said, it's big hole till you fill it, for sure.
Yeah. And predictions are definitely just a bit of fun that I suppose everyone has and everyone throws out there, but it really doesn't mean anything until what happens on
Yeah, and I wasn't hating on him when I was saying I was going to keep my prediction to myself. I just, very much so headed into Tampa, very much so headed into this show. I realize I'm the rookie, and I'm not trying to be overly cautious, but I am trying to be respectful to those that have been doing it for a long time before me. So, at the end of the day, I do like hearing the predictions. I do pay attention to them. So it's, like I said, it's cool to be hearing what I'm hearing. And, at this point, it's on me to try and deliver on it. So,
yeah, absolutely. Now you got 2.5 weeks between now and the actual Mr. Olympia. So I guess what's the game plan and what are you hoping to achieve between, I suppose, from this point in time to the time you step on stage? Is it more about drying out and you're ready in terms of conditioning wise, or what is it exactly?
No, at this point, I feel like we're right on track. I feel like I never really have a problem flattening out. So at this point, we're still just, really trying to push condition. Like you said, I post all my diets and stuff on my Instagram. That most recent update post that I did with the low day, tomorrow will be 10 days in a row on that low day. So like I said, we're just pushing, and you can see in the pictures, like I'm starting to flatten out a little bit, and stuff's not popping and stuff's not as strided as it normally is, but at the end of the day, I'm still pretty full for having only eaten 140 grams of carbs for the last 10 days in a row. For someone like my size, because I was 262 fasted this morning. That's not, I'm not going to call it like a 0 day, but it's close enough to a 0 day for 10 days in a row. So
yeah, with someone your amount of muscle mass, people don't realize, like a lot of like people will prep on 140 grams of carbs a day and it feels sort of normal for them. It's like, oh yeah, I'm dieting it, that's how it feels. But for someone who's 260 something pounds, 140 grams of carbs. People don't realize that is low.
Well, that's kind of what I meant by, it's like, it's not zero, but for someone my size, it's closer to zero than people think.
Yeah.
So.
What's a typical off season in terms of how many carbs you're eating a day in an off season? Just for, I suppose.
So this off season, I was structured for the entire time because I had so much ground to make up from my shoulder. And every day for about 10 months straight, I ate 380 grams of protein, like 950 to 1,000 grams of carbs a day, depending on condiments used, and about 150 grams of fat. So
that's like Jay Cutler style. I remember he used to do like 1,000 grams of carbs a day in the off season. Everyone's like, whoa, that's crazy. So you're basically at that level.
Yeah. So basically, I'm eating, around 1/10 of the carbohydrates I'm used to, 1/8 of the carbohydrates I'm used to. But it is what it is. I'm one of those guys, like I don't know. 5 weeks out, I feel great. It's I feel best. I always joke. The only time I'm never miserable from food is like from when it's like 8 weeks out to, let's call it 10 weeks out to like 6 weeks out, and then for the first like 4 weeks post show.
Yeah.
Because those are the only times I'm not having to like disgustingly force feed or disgustingly starve. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And in like a lot of people say like Juan Morel, he's got a crazy metabolism. He has to eat, McDonald's on his basically his prep diets. But for you as well, like you've almost got the perfect combination where you don't really flatten out too much. You can eat 1,000 grams of carbs in the off season and you still don't do the same amount of volume as training as Jay Cutler does. So you've got obviously a crazy fast metabolism because you don't get fat in your off season either. Like, have you sort of thought about that and gone, I've actually got it pretty decent in terms of how my body responds?
No, and that's one of those things, it's we always start prep and I feel like my metabolism's like a damn bonfire, and as we go through, it definitely slows down, obviously, because at first I'm getting leaner, eating 800 grams of carbs a day, like significantly leaner. Like when we really pull things back for the first time, like the amount that I sharpen up is crazy, eating the amount of food that I still am. So, it's just once you get to that certain point and it's like, okay, it's time to really push conditioning, things start slowing up for sure. But yeah, in terms of my metabolism in the off season, I'll be blunt about it. I kind of eat like an asshole in the off season, especially when I'm trying to push my weight up. And I'll never get over 10% body fat. Like I'll always have abs at least, and then my extremities will stay like minorly striated, like my triceps and my quads and stuff. So.
Yeah, jealous. A lot of people be jealous of that. That's for sure. Now, what do you? I suppose the package you brought to Tampa. What improvements are you hoping to make? Is it more size? Is it better conditioning? What is the actual, I suppose, improvement?
So the improvements that I'm hoping to make to the Tampa look is more size from the waist up, and then better conditioning all around, for sure.
Yep.
Drier, harder, leaner, whatever you want to call it, and then heavier from the waist up.
Yeah. And how was that lighting at Tampa as well? Because I've heard sort of mixed reviews. I heard most people said it wasn't the best. Is that your opinion as well?
Man, I don't know. I've seen enough pictures, from professional photographers, the stage shots, videos. I don't think anyone looked that poor in it. And at the end of the day, and it's always been kind of like one of those, like, why is that something that people complain about? Is everyone stands under the same light. It's not like I'm giving them the settings that I want, and then someone else is like handing in their settings, and it's like, oh, I guessed right for the lights that we use today, kind of deal. It's everyone's under the same lights. So I've never understood why that's such a thing. Like when people complain about placings, I don't think it affects placings. Sure, it affects the pictures or the videos, like looking at it. But in person, it don't matter. The lighting's good enough to see in person who the best bodybuilder is every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me watching it, I was like, okay, like I'd watch the actual video and I'm like, is everyone a little bit off, or is it more the lighting's, I suppose, maybe a little bit off, or the video's a little bit off? Because I did see some photos from the side, like on side angles from the stage and off iPhones, and you look peeled in those. And I'm like, you don't look quite as peeled on the video. So I was like, which one is it?
And that's like a joke that I've always made. It's like, it's exactly what you said. I would get people tagging me in photos they took from the crowd or in videos on their iPhones, and I'm like, damn, I look pretty peeled. And then it's like I see JM stage shots, and it's like I look borderline 2 weeks out, and I'm like, shit. so it's like I completely agree. You know, it's definitely different looks depending on the camera, the angle, you know, this, that, or the other. But you know, like I said, at the end of the day, we're all under the same lights. So.
Yep. Now, do you prep yourself, or do you have someone prepping you exclusively for this contest?
I prep with Andrew Vu. So I have him as my quote unquote coach. And then obviously I have my dad, Lee Labrada, and then my training partner, Brian, who see me pretty much every single day at this point. You know, I've been training with Brian for 5 years now. And then obviously my dad's been my dad my whole life. So both of them have a very good handle on my body as well as Andrew. And, you know, it's kind of cool, you know, from the standpoint that I am my father's son, if you will. So, you know, his body chemistry is my body chemistry, you know, like roundabouts. So it really has been a help. You know, we haven't done much pissing in the wind, if you will, getting me ready for shows in the past. And, you know, I'm a little different from the standpoint that I'm so much bigger and so much heavier than he ever was. But, you know, I feel like we're dialing it in, really, you know, finding that magic formula for the last couple of weeks. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because, you know, obviously on a much lower level, my dad used to compete as well. So I sort of had the sort of a similar sort of thing where I was like
It's
asking
in
my
your
dad
blood too. It don't matter what level they did it at. Bodybuilders are bodybuilders.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. Do you think you would have found bodybuilding without your dad being into it or not?
You know, honestly, I do. I really do. Just the way that, because even if I didn't have my dad, I was gonna find, you know, as long as I went to the high school that I went to, the middle school that I went to, I was gonna fall in love with football. I was gonna have the strength and conditioning coach that I had, and you know, like I was gonna do the things that I was gonna do, and that's originally what made me fall in love with, you know, like bodybuilding, if you will, was, you know, training for football. So I think I would have found it for sure. Would I have been, you know, like I'm going to be a professional bodybuilder, I'm going to be on the Olympia stage one day at 19 years old? Probably not. But you know, it's I think I would have found it for sure, especially, you know, because I do have, you know, good genetics for it. Like even if my dad didn't do it, but I still had like the same genetics that I have in some alternate universe. I think, you know, seeing the way that my body would respond to the training, I think that would make me get into it for sure.
Absolutely. Now, do you have, I suppose, you know, your goal is obviously to one day be Mr. Olympia and become Mr. Olympia and hold that title, which is something your dad was so close to doing, but not quite able to achieve that goal. Now, do you, I suppose, have a timeline on when you want to achieve these things? Do you ever look like 5 years down the track, 10 years down the track, or do you just go comp by comp?
I told myself that I was either going to be seriously contending for or defending an Olympia title by the time I was 35, or I was going to be done with bodybuilding.
Yeah. How old are you now?
I'm 28, so that's 7 years from now.
You've got a while, man. You've got a while.
Yeah. So, you know, it's one of those things. I feel like by the time I'm 35, we'll all have a real good idea if it's in the cards or not. And I'm always been one of those there's life after bodybuilding kind of guys. So you know, get in, get out, and you know, if it's in the cards, I'm gonna do everything I can. But I'm not one of those people that's gonna kill myself to try and do it if it's not. So
yeah. And I suppose when you say obviously a life after bodybuilding, would you stay in the industry and stay around bodybuilding in terms of the industry, in terms of supplements or whatever, or would you just be out and doing something totally different?
I will always be involved with bodybuilding. I love bodybuilding. I'll always be involved in the industry, whether it be, you know, with supplements, with coaching, you know, just with being around it. I love bodybuilding. You know, that being said, I do love things outside of bodybuilding that I could definitely see, you know, me making business ventures out of. So, you know, at the end of the day, I'll never be away from it. You know, my dad says this, and a lot of bodybuilders say it, but once a bodybuilder, always a bodybuilder. But yeah.
Absolutely, man. I love that answer as well. And I think like people love to hear that, you know, bodybuilders that retire will stay in the sport. It's or at least stay around it, because when you see like what Jay Cutler's done, obviously what your dad's done, and he stayed in the industry and stayed around it, people love to see that. And I think it's because people love to see people love bodybuilding that are actually in it. So I think that's really cool, and people will love that answer. So thank you so much for doing this, Hunter. 2.5 weeks out of a Mr. Olympia. Now I want to give you the opportunity to thank your sponsors and thank anyone else you want to thank.
Oh yeah, first off, thanks for having me on, Xavier. It's always
Pleasure, man.
it's this our second time. It's been a good time. Super easy to talk to. Can definitely tell you love bodybuilding. So you're good in my book. Always down to be on with you. But yeah, definitely want to thank Labrada Nutrition, Gas, Revive MD and the Pride Foods. Those are the companies that take care of me and have been with me for a while now. So those are the companies going to get me across the finish line for my first Olympia. Also want to give a big shout out to my dad for helping me out on a personal level with my posing and, you know, all things bodybuilding. My training partner and business partner, Brian, he's who I coach with. He's who I do my apparel with. And then obviously who's who I train with. Excuse me. And then finally, my coach, Andrew, you know, we've been together for a couple of years now and won some pretty big shows together and looking forward to seeing what we do at the biggest show together. So, jeez. Anyways, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to finishing strong and showing y'all what we've been cooking up the last couple months.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Hunter. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you think of this interview and also how you think Hunter Labrada will do at the 2020 Mr. Olympia and how excited you are to see him, because I'm definitely one of those ones that is excited to see you up on stage, man. So it's Hunter Labrada, winner of the 2020 Tampa Pro, and we'll get to see how he does in 2.5 weeks' time. Thank you, Hunter.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man.